Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble. It's time. The Pony Pundits, Marco D'Angelo, and some guy with a strange name and a weirder shirt. Sig from Las Vegas, talking nothing but ponies. I'm the Prez. I'm going to mute myself and hand the show over to the big man who refuses to accept my Twitter challenges, Marco D'Angelo, the co-host of the show, incapable of the worm, can't break dance, has very little skills. I hand it to you, my friend.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Prez. What a day so far for me. I got to listen to you bust my balls to start the show. Then I got a guy calls me on Twitter a horse's ass, and then that guy that called me a horse's ass shows up to do this podcast wearing that shirt. Yeah, okay, I'm the horse's ass. Hey, Sig, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic, Marco. How are you on this fine Friday?
Yeah, real good. Where'd you find that shirt?
I actually raided Las Vegas Chris's wardrobe.
Oh, you know what? Chris has some ugly damn shirts. I don't even think Chris would wear that one.
That hurts.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's open this show. And, obviously you and I love horse racing. And one of the big attractions to horse racing is that you can wager a small amount of money and bring home a major score. Unfortunately for you and me, that wasn't us on Saturday last week. But there was one lucky gentleman that walked away from Gulfstream Park. Well, I wasn't actually there because nobody can watch races live, but he did bet the race, and he bet the pick five, the early pick five at Gulfstream, Sig, a 50-cent pick five wager. Now, obviously, he put more than 50 cents into the ticket, but you could actually win it with just a 50-cent ticket. $525,000 for a pick five 50-cent denomination. That is insane. Did you have any of those five?
I actually had the winners of the fourth and fifth race as my top selection on Saturday's sheet. Unfortunately, the winners of races 1, 2, and 3 weren't even in the neighborhood. And going back to our handicapping tips that we share on the show here, one of the things you can do is go back and look after the races are done that day at your handicapping, at the past performances, and say, hey, did I miss something here? Is there something that I should have caught that I didn't? Or were the 73-1 bombers just out of nowhere?
Yeah, you had the first race, $148 payout for the winner. Second race, a $70 payout for the winner. And the third race, a $75 payout to the winner. I'll tell you, Sig, the only way you could hit that pick five at Gulfstream Park is if you played your numbers possibly from handicapping Oaklawn Park's first pick five and go to the wrong track and do the handicapping. Because I could have handicapped that pick five probably 50 times, and I still wouldn't have had at least two of the three of the first three races. Just incredible. But you know what? That's what we like about horse racing, and that's what people like. Small players like that opportunity to make big scores. And, we've made some big scores over the days, our history of betting, but none like that. And congratulations to the guy that hit that one. I got to say, did he play like his lucky numbers? He must have, like if he plays a Keno card or something, and those are the 5 numbers he plays all the time to hit that one, because handicapping didn't take center stage that day. And say, speaking of handicapping, I want to ask you, and this has not been that uncommon in the last few weeks with us seeing some really, really big prices at tracks around the country. And what I think my take on it and why we're seeing so many long shots recently is me coming from, knowing the day-to-day of what goes into training these horses and keeping these horses fit, finding the right class conditions to put your horses in. All of that's, out the window right now because of the situation that we're at. We basically have just a handful of tracks running, and everybody's normal schedules are disrupted. People that normally would be in Kentucky right now racing, at the Keeneland meet, getting ready for moving to the Churchill Downs meet, New York tracks that would be running up here. All of that's out the window. California racing out the window. And people are scrambling to get horses in at other tracks. And the stable, the supply of horses is still there, but the number of places that you can run these horses right now is not. So horses are not on their normal schedule. And I think that's really making handicapping, pretty disruptive right now.
I have to agree completely, Marco. People have horses ready to run here in the last month in Derby preps and other races, and there's no prep to get to at this point other than the Arkansas Derby coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a loaded field.
Yeah, there was some talk that possibly would they go to 2 divisions, but they really, because it's a race that has the points to the Derby, I don't know that they can do that and be fair to other people with the other races, because are you going to split the number of points if you split the divisions, or would you still give, the 100 points to the winner of each division? So a lot of things that, are very uncertain right now in the world of horse racing, but right now it's the only game in town at the limited tracks, and those tracks are doing very well with their handles. We talked about it last week with Bonner Park and Will Rogers Downs, probably 2 tracks that most people wouldn't know anything about, are getting a lot of play on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays because they're the only thing running. Tampa Bay Downs getting bigger handles when they're running, and then Oaklawn Park and Gulfstream being the featured tracks right now. And we're going to be talking about a few of those in a moment. We're going to cover the pick 4 at Gulfstream Park. This is the middle pick 4, which will be races 5 through 8. And then the big race on the weekend, Sig, that's at Oaklawn Park. And actually, Oaklawn's got a loaded card on Saturday. Going to be a fun day of racing at Oaklawn, and it's highlighted by the Apple Blossom Stakes. This is one of the premier races for fillies, and we'll be looking at this race. We'll break that down in its entirety coming up next. But before we do, let's jump into a little bit of handicapping. We try to cover at least 1 or 2 angles on each week's show. And again, guys, if you have any questions for us, hit us up on Twitter and we'll cover it on the show. We like to help you guys make everybody better handicappers. And there's a lot of new people to the sport right now. So no question is dumb. I know there's a lot of guys that know the ins and outs of horse racing, and some of those questions might seem very simple, but hey, remember, everybody started somewhere, and we want to get everybody up to speed on how to handicap horse racing. And before we get into the first handicapping tip, I just want to remind everybody that they can check out shows twice a day at WagerTalk. Follow us on our YouTube channel. Do us a big favor. You like the videos that we're doing, give us that old thumbs up. Also, give us the subscribe to our channel, hit the notifications button, and then you'll never miss any of the shows. And we have 2 shows from WagerTalk daily, Monday through Friday. First show airs at noon Eastern, and then the second show airs at 3 o'clock. So 10 different shows each week here at WagerTalk, keeping everybody entertained while we're all on the quarantine lockdown. Sig, what I want to talk about this week is tote board handicapping. And this is something that, if you know nothing about horse racing, this is a good place to start if you want to try to see, a little bit of insight and what you can do in trying to find some live horses in horse racing. And for those, the tote board, that's the big thing in the middle of the infield that's got the odds of the current race that's going on. And Sig, when you look at the tote board, there's 2 times to look at the tote board. And I'm going to explain the differences in both, and you tell me your thoughts. There's early money on a tote board and there's late money on a tote board. I'm going to get in depth on the late money on the tote board and why that money comes in late and why that's the strongest indicator of a horse if it's being live or not. The early money, two things to look at. Sometimes, just like in sports betting, we talk about, my good buddy VR will always talk about, head fakes in sports betting, where early in the week, sometimes you'll see money come in when the lines first open and you can move the lines quicker. Syndicates will bet a certain team, maybe moving that line from 2 to 3, where all along they were setting up, they wanted to take the dog at +3. So they can manipulate the odds early in the week when they move the lines much quicker because of smaller limits. Well, in horse racing, sometimes that happens too, where you might get some syndicates that'll maybe throw some money at the tote board early, especially at smaller tracks, where an initial bet can affect the odds, only to come back later, maybe offshore and so forth, to end up betting the races and get a better price on their horse because people see some early money come in and they gravitate to that horse. What are your thoughts on that?
The tote board's a great place, especially for new handicappers, to take a look and see where money's flowing. As we've discussed on the show previously, you're not betting against the house when you're betting on horses. You're betting in the pari-mutuel pools where all the money is going into a pool and then being divided up by the winning tickets. So seeing where that money's flowing, whether it's win, play, show bets, or another way I think you may even be heading here is to look at the will pays and see where the money's looking to land on cutting the upcoming races. But it's a great way to gauge where you're at and if you're with the quote-unquote sharp money or if you're basically laying on a dog.
Yes, absolutely. Now, with that said, you don't see that as much anymore with the syndicates doing the head fakes. They still do it, but now that we're racing at, the big tracks here, Gulfstream, Oaklawn, something like that you could see at smaller tracks. And they even went as far as sometimes they would go to the window and put down a $100 win bet at a small track, like our track in Pittsburgh, my track, the Meadows. If I bet $200 to win on my horse early, I'm going to make the horse 1-9. Just pure and simple, because there's not a lot of money open in the tote board. And then what they would do later is, go back to the window. Oh, I punched the wrong ticket and nullify that, take that out, or leave it in there just to have the better odds on the other one, but you're playing against your own money there. But where I will tell you that if you see some money early on a horse, don't disregard it, because the people in the know, and when I say people in the know, the people associated with the horse, the people that work with the horse every day, the trainers, the grooms, the owners know this, but I'll get to the owners later because that'll be me speaking from personal experiences. The grooms and so forth all have friends, okay? And if a guy takes care of a horse and he knows the horse is good, he wants to get a little bit of money down on the horse. He will go and put his money down before he goes to the paddock, make his bet, because he's in the paddock taking care of the horse. He can't bet like 3 minutes to post time, 2 minutes to post time. He's working with the horse. So he might want to put his money down, and maybe the groom, is only putting $30, $40, $50 down on the horse. But that groom also always has a friend that will give him, a live horse, so to speak, that might be working at another barn and so forth. They trade information. So word trickles around and all the grooms get their money down generally early. It's not going to be an overwhelming amount of money, but it's going to be enough that if you see a horse that is in the morning line at 15-1 and at the first flash of the tote board, and this is the one where I say it's important to look if you're going to look at early money, look at the opening board, because that's where people that work on the backside would put money in because they're going to be in the paddock when the race actually happens. So when they change race 3 and go to race 4, the first numbers, when they change the odds, the first odds that'll go up will be the morning line, and then they'll flash the first cycle of bets. And when those go in, take note, and if you see a 15-1 shot that's sitting at 6-1, make a little note and then watch that to see if that stays that way or if it drifts back up. If it drifts back up, then, generally don't worry about it too much. But if it drifts back up and then in the last 2 minutes takes a big plunge back down, that horse is very live. And why it's very live, Sig, is because the heavy hitters, the owners, the guys that are paying the bills on those horses and know their horse is good that day, been training well. Maybe the horse had an injury that finally healed 100%. The racing form doesn't show that. The public doesn't know that. But, they were taking care of the horse and nursing him back to the races for 6 weeks, paying all those vet bills, training bills, and that. And they want to get a little bit of that back in a hurry. And the best way to get some of that back, obviously, is the purse money that you're going to win. But we wouldn't be in the horse business if we didn't have gamble to us, okay? I swear to God, they should have made my middle name Gamble, because every one of my vices is gamble. Obviously, sports betting. My side business is, horse racing. And then my, what do you want to call, hobby slash, therapy, I like to get out, is play poker. So everything is something that, it's a game of chance. It's also a game of skill, but in the end of the day, there's still gamble and luck involved in all of that. But I can tell you, anytime my horse is live, Sig, I'm not betting as an owner until the last minute of the race, because, as you said, we're not betting against a house. We're betting against everybody else. And a lot of people do watch the tote board. And when they watch that tote board, they see the erratic patterns that a horse that, on paper should be double digits, 20-1 or something, and is sitting around at 6-1, 7-1 to 8-1. That horse is live, and they're going to piggyback it. Do you agree?
I agree completely, Marco. And then we'll go back to your discussion regarding poker a few minutes ago. You don't want to tip your hand. As a horse owner, as a horse trainer, you do see that money come in, but you do see that smart, quote unquote, smart money come in late on that horse, because you don't want to tip your hand, and you don't want to tell the betting public, hey, wait a minute, why is all this money coming in on this 12-1 shot in the last 2 minutes? Plus, if you see that, you guys are run to the window, they're going to get shut out. But a lot of times I hear people ask me, Sig, my horse was 15-1 in the program this morning. Why is he only paying 8-5 here at the window? Well, that's because, number one, a lot of tracks don't have the best people making their morning lines. Some do, don't get me wrong, some do. But some guys just take a look at the program, don't even really handicap it, and just place odds on horses based on maybe where they finished their last couple races and so forth. So the morning line is not always an accurate reflection on what you're looking at. You really do want to take a look at the races before post time. The problem that you run into sometimes with that, though, is especially if you're on track or, say, at a sports or race book, is getting shut out. When you try to wait too long to the last minute, you're standing in that line, the guy in front of you is placing 5 wagers on 3 tracks that run tonight, and you're standing there waiting, trying to get down on a race that's occurring right now or in the next minute, and oftentimes you get shut out. So you'll see that happen. But like Marco said, the late money does come in, or the smart money does come in late, oftentimes on these horses.
Yeah, and with a lot of the apps now, we talk about it all the time with the sports apps, the convenience of betting at home and being able to bet, horse racing as well. Even if you go to some racetracks, you can download their app at a racetrack. I know when I would go to Del Mar during the summertime, put up an app and bet phone, just, go to the window, deposit, and put the money on the account, and then sit there and bet from your seat. And that is a way to sit there, watch the tote board, and get that last bet in rather than standing at the window. And how many times have you been behind somebody and you're like, stop, get out of there, and they're betting $2, or they're asking the teller, what's win, place, and show? And you want to just punch them in the back of the head. But, that's another rant for that. Back in the day, a lot of the tracks used to have designated windows for minimum bets. And that made life a lot easier, where you're not going to get the casual fan that doesn't know anything standing in $100 minimum wager window. Every track should have, I think, one of those windows on each end of the grandstand, so that the high rollers have their own window to go at to bet. Good topic for that. And like I said, again, this is an easy ABC way for somebody that doesn't know how to read a racing form, but just can read a racing form enough to see what the morning line odds are on the horse and look up at the tote board. It's a way to put you on some live horses. So I hope that helps you guys out. Speaking of putting you on some live horses, let's talk about the big race of the weekend, Sig. I'll let you start this off at Oaklawn Park. It's race number 10 on Saturday. It's the Apple Blossom Stakes. This is some of the best fillies in the country, be showing up for this race. In Sig, it's a wide open field. I know I got a long shot in this race, and we exchanged some texts this morning. You got a long shot in this race too, but we're not on the same horse. Let's start it off, and we'll do a little, maybe get into a little heated argument on this one.
All right, Marco, as you said, we do both have a long shot here. I actually have my long shot on top. I'm looking at the one horse, Ollie's Candy, 12-1 here on the morning line. It's a 5-year-old mare out of Candy Ride. Finished third in the Beholder Mile last month at Santa Anita off a little layoff. It's her first start. It's been 4 months since she's raced for John Sadler, and I think she needed that race. She got beat by a very good horse, which we're also going to talk about in this field today. She's a grade 1 winner, and she fits perfectly with this field today. I like that it's her second start off a layoff, and I like the fact that Joel Rosario's taken over in the irons. I think he gives her a nice aggressive ride, and at 12-1, help him count the money here on Saturday after race 10.
You know what? Everything you said, I agree with 100% on this particular horse. He's got the perfect style for this race because I think there's a ton of speed in this race. And I think you want a horse that's going to be a stalker or a closer. If they really get stupid on the front end, a deep closer is going to get there. Second start off the layoff, perfect. That was a grade 1 race that she raced in last time, so it was a tough race. Race good, finished third. All of that said applies to another horse in this race. And I'm going to the number 5 horse in this race, and I've got this horse on top. My horse is 10-1, and that's Point of Honor. And you look at this horse, very lightly raced horse, okay? 4-year-old making second start of the season. And off of the layoff, I like a horse the second start and third starts off the layoff. You go back, this horse hadn't raced since August. So to come back in its debut, now a much easier race, Sig. I'll agree with you. The Beholder Mile was, that was a bigger race that your horse was in for its first start. But I am looking at the race that my horse was in. That was nothing more than a setup race, pointing this horse for this race. They brought the horse back, first start, the beginning of March, which the perfect time schedule would be. Thoroughbreds love to race when you're racing these big races 4 to 5 weeks out. That was the perfect tune-up race. They finished second in that race, and yes, she got beat by 4 lengths in that race, but put up a good buyer figure for the first one out of the gate. And prior to that, last 3 races of last year, the horse had 90 buyers, comes out of the gate, first start 87. And for me as a horse owner and my trainer, we would always talk about when we would give a horse a break and then we mapped out the horse's schedule. Anytime we had a big stake race on the docket, we wanted to have that race that we would call the tightener. You'll hear the quote, they needed a race. That's what that last race was, in my opinion, for Point of Honor. And excuse the pun, they were pointing solely to this race. Picks up Drayden Van Dyke, very capable jockey, patient jockey. And this is a horse that's going to sit off the pace and in the stalking position. Might actually be running around the track right next to your horse, Ollie's horse, what is it, Ollie's Candy. And I think those two horses are going to be making their moves about the same time. And I just think that there's more upside on Point of Honor. Just a 4-year-old, only 7 lifetime starts. This horse hasn't peaked yet, Sig. And I'm looking for a big race. And because there are some big names in this race, I think the money's going to flow elsewhere. I think we're going to get good prices on both your horse and my horse. And my big bet is actually going to be win, place, and show in this race. I think that it is a wide open race. I actually go 5 deep in this race of horses that I think have a good shot to win it. At 10-1, the value to me is on this one. Might actually get a little bit of a higher price, because let's talk about a couple of those other horses that are going to take some of the money, but I think they might be compromised because they're going to get in a speed duel.
I agree with you completely on that, Marco. My second choice in here, and I'm hesitant to make it as my second choice, but I can't knock her that much, is Come Dancing. It's 3-1, the morning line. She's kicking off her 6-year-old season, and she's coming in with a new trainer, but she's hoping to repeat her 2019 season. She had 4 grade stakes wins last summer, and she was runner-up to Midnight Bisou, a very, very good horse. And when she finished second, and she finished 6th in her last start, which was the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare. I'm sorry, our last start last season was the Breeders' and Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Dean Wade Lucas, legendary trainer, took over training duties for her following that Breeders' Cup. I know she can get this distance, but I think she's more suited to a shorter. I think she's perfect for 7 furlongs to a mile. This mile and a 16th might be just a little too much for her. And like Marco said, there's going to be some early speed in this race. She may just be in that early pace-setting group and run out of gas here.
Yeah, and given that this is the horse's first start of the season, didn't get that tightener race that we talked about, I do have Come Dancing as my second choice as well, because I do think of the front runners, this horse is one of the better ones if she goes back to her form from last year. Her last race of the season was in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, as you said. She just didn't race well in that race. That was a very tough race last year. But first start of the season to come out of the gate and be involved in fractions, I think she might just run out of gas in the stretch. But this is a horse that still can hang around and get a piece of the ticket. I have her second. I'll swing into my third choice here. And my third choice is the 14. That is a horse that probably, if it wasn't for the outside post and the fact that this horse is going to have to leave to get position, how much they're going to have to use of this horse early is going to be the question. This horse doesn't have to be on the lead. He has raced on the lead, but he's also raced in that 2 or 3 path. And I think that would serve him better. But he's going to have to use some horse to get to that second or third position. And again, how much will he have left? Back-to-back wins, raced very well in California. Victor Espinosa is making the trip to Oaklawn on Saturday. He's got nothing else to do. There's no racing in California, so he might as well. But it's nice to see when a regular jock makes the trip to a track that he normally doesn't race at. But again, don't get too excited over angles like that because of the current situation that we have with the limited number of tracks running right now. So being that Oaklawn Park and Gulfstream basically the only gigs in town to race for big money, you can't put as much emphasis on an angle like that. But the number 14 CC is a horse that's in good current form. Wish would have drew like a post position 6 or 7 would have been, ideal in this field. Who do you got next in this race?
Well, guys, just to set the scene here for what's to come, Marco and I handicap everything separately, and then usually just touch base an hour or two here before the show. I landed on the 14cc as my third choice as well. And I get the feeling that the rest of the show is pretty much going to be in sync here between Marco and my beliefs on how things are going to work out. I landed on the CC. I think she's going to go off as the favorite. She was a 3-length winner in the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita last out. It was an impressive victory as well. She does retain Victor Espinoza, as Marco said. But the one thing that I jumped out at me, number one, with a 14 hole, she is going to have to get her way over. She's going to have a long way to run early. But she worked at Santa Anita on Sunday, not like last Sunday, just Sunday, Easter Sunday, a couple days ago, 5 days ago. Then she took the cross-country trip, not completely cross-country, but I mean, Arkansas is at least a 2-day trip for a normal person from California. She settled into a new barn here and it's going to run on Saturday. Something tells me that this just isn't going to be her day.
Yeah, there definitely are things to be concerned about. Now, a horse that I think is going to take some money, Sig, and it's my next horse, and I think it's probably going to be your next horse also, but the 11 horse, Serengeti Empress. And this is a horse that is a stone cold on the front end. This horse likes to control the race, likes to be on the lead. Going to be doing it against some really good horses. Got that outside post position, not the far outside, but got the 11 post. How much is this horse going to have to use in the early going? And will it have enough to stave off all of the horses? And, you know, if it is fast fractions, does it set it up for a closer? And the fact that this horse has had 2 races this year, one over this track, which is an advantage last time out, but got really soft fractions in that race, got her own way. She's not going to have that today. How do you see the 11 horse?
Actually, Serengeti Empress is my 4th choice here. It's a horse I'll never forget, but not for the reasons that most people expect. Yeah, she took me down a big pick 4. I won a huge win bet on her. Serengeti Empress won the Kentucky Oaks last year on Derby weekend, completely blowing up my tickets. I was so frustrated, I left the race book at Red Rock Casino, went out, stuck some money in a poker machine, and won a Cadillac. That's a story for a different day, but I will never forget Serengeti Empress for that reason.
Actually, that's a good story. And I didn't have a story time today. We're going to have that one for story time today. We're going to let Sig have a story time because it was a pretty cute story. So we'll hold that one for Sig on that one. And then Sig, my last, like I said, I put this race 5 deep. I'm going to hit the 5 horse, win, place, and show. Pretty decent wager. And then I'm going to throw just a few exactas in there because if I hit it and I'm going to stretch it out, normally I wouldn't go 4 deep on exactas, but because I have a long shot on top, if I do hit the exacta, it's going to pay good, and I have the 1 as my last horse. So I will be playing the 5 horse, win, place, and show, and then I will my 4 horses underneath it in order of preference is 4, 14, 11, and 1. I'll throw some exactas, put the 5 first and second over those 4 horses and see if I can get myself, a nice exacta. And then I'll build a trifecta ticket as well. I like to do tiering on the trifecta, and by tiering, what I mean is I'll put generally maybe 3 horses in the top spot, 4 horses in the second spot, and then anywhere from 4 to 7 horses in the third spot. If it is a big race that's going to have a lot of play with an inflated pool, will dictate how deep I'll go on the third slot for the trifecta. So that's how I'm betting the race of the day. How are you betting it?
Oh, like you, Marco, I'm taking my long shot here. Always can't eat a 1. I'll have some win, place, and show bets. I normally don't bet show, but on a bigger race like this, we have a big field. We have 14 in the field. It's the biggest race of the weekend. You're going to see a lot of money here. Number 1, because Oaklawn and Gulfstream are the 2 biggest tracks running. Number 2, it's the biggest race of the weekend. And it's a very talented and well laid out field. So there will be money spread around here. We're going to bet always candy, win, place, and show in this case. Then we're going to box. I normally don't box 4 horses in an exacta, but being a bigger race, and with the money flowing in here, we're going to box the 1, 4, 14, and 11. And then we're going to do a 50-cent trifecta box or whatever to gauge it to your wagering standards. A 50-cent box on those 1, 4, 11, and 14 is $12 for the trifecta. So we're going to play it that way.
I'm going to tell you right now, I feel bad for you because you're leaving the 5 out, and that's going to blow up your ticket.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Why I left the 5 off my ticket is that if you take a look over in the racing form at the horses that horse raced with and beat. Take a look at Always Candy, and then take a look at
Point of honor.
Thank you. I don't have my racing form laid in front of me. It's just the quality of horses Always Candy's raced with and against versus Point of Honors, the fields that they've raced against. I just have a feeling, I think she's a good horse. I don't think she's raced against the class and quality of the fields that Always Candy's seen. And I think that makes a big difference in the horse.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I'm looking at it this way. The horse, breaks its maiden first start of its career and breaks its maiden winning by 6 lengths, comes back and goes into a small stake, 100K stake at Tampa in the Suncoast, wins that race, second career start, then comes back and races at Gulfstream in the Oaks there, and races very well, finishes 4th, just beaten 2 lengths in its first real test against Stakes Company, a grade 2 race. Come back and race in the Black Eyed Susan. The Black Eyed Susan is the big race on the Preakness Friday card for fillies and for fillies, 3-year-olds. Wins that race. Wins a grade 1 at Saratoga, and then comes back and wins one of the premier races of the summer meet at Saratoga, the Alabama, another grade 1 stakes. You know what? 7 lifetime starts, 3 wins, 3 seconds, 2 grade 2 stakes, 2 grade 1 stakes. I don't know. That's pretty good company, in my opinion, sir, with the fancy shirt. So we shall see tomorrow. One of us will be texting the other one. And, we're sick, too. Whenever one of us runs over the other one's ticket with a winner, we just rub the salt in the wounds of the other guy. It's what was the movie where the 2 guys, Eddie Murphy was the lead character in there, and they basically ruined his life for a $1 bet. The 2 rich guys. Trading Places. That's it. Yeah. That's basically me and you on any given day when whether we're at the track together, at the sports book together, or thousands of miles away texting one another, we get pleasure in running over the other guy's ticket, but in a fun way. If I'm beat, I want you to win, but you know what? I want me to win more. I'm sorry. And I'm sure you feel the same.
No lack of ball busting in this relationship, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we covered that pretty well for the Apple Blossom at Oaklawn on Saturday, race 10. Let's go to Gulfstream Park, and we're going to do the middle pick 4 at Gulfstream. We originally were going to do the late pick 4, but then I got a late text saying, no, we're going to the middle pick 4. So I'm going to let you start and tell us your rundown. Give us your ticket, and then we'll talk about maybe your top horse in each race briefly. So we can't go real depth in every race, or we'll be here till post time tomorrow. But tell me what you're spending on Saturday, starting with race 5, and this will run from race 5 through race 8 at Gulfstream. It's the middle pick 4. And Sig, how much you spending?
Got a $45 ticket here, Marco, for Saturday. Like you said, starting in race 5, we're going to go a 3x3 by 2x5 ticket, starting with the 11, 10, and 5, with the 7, 5, and 1, with 7, 1, with 7, 1, 2, 5, 3. There's a lot of 7s in there. But what I did is what I like here is race 5's a maiden special weight with a $45,000 purse, going 8 furlongs on the turf. My top choice in this race is Holy Meister. It's a 4-year-old gelding out of Bodemeister. He's been game on all 5 of his career starts. He has 2 seconds and 2 thirds. He has got one of Gulfstream's highest jockeys right now in Tyler Gaffalione in the irons, and I think he's got a good shot at taking this one down.
All right. Well, I will tell you, as you alluded to earlier in the show, Sig, it's like we just, did the race together, in the same room across from one another, handicapping the horses one by one, but we didn't. I worked on the card last night. Actually, I finished up the card about 3 a.m. last night, and I like to do my work late at night, and you did yours at whatever time, and we never talked till this morning, and we have basically the same ticket. Mine's $15 more because I have a different configuration. I'm going with, it's a $60 ticket, 50-cent pick 4. I'm going 4 by 2 by 3 by 5. Now, let's start it off. Race 5, I've got the 11 horse on top. We're in complete agreement there. 10, 7, 5. I just add an extra horse in my top level, putting the 7 in there. You said there's a lot of 7s. Man, you'll be sick if the pick 4 is 7, 7, 7, 7, and you missed it, Sig. And I will let you know about that as well if that happens. In the second race, race 6, I'm going with 2 horses. I have the 7 on top, the 5 second. Well, you've got 7, 5, 1, so we're in complete agreement on the top 2. And if I look just out of curiosity, race 6, no, I did not have the 1 as my third choice there. Race 7, I'm going 3 deep in this one. 7, 1, 10, 7 being my top choice. And race 7 is the one where you're going with 2 horses, and you're going with the 7, 1. We're complete agreement on the top 2 there. And then on race 8, the final leg, I think the final leg's wide open. Obviously, you did too with 5 horses going 5 deep. We got the same 5 horses. We just basically have them in almost reverse order. You have 7, 1, 2, 5, 3. I have 7, 2, 3, 1, 7. So if you play, the tickets here, you're basically, either one of our tickets is going to be basically the other guy's ticket with just 1 horse missing off of each of our tickets of the other guy. I think we got a good shot here. Usually we're not in complete agreement on these races, especially when, you've got some maiden races in there and such, and some claiming races. It's going to be an interesting pick 4 tomorrow.
Definitely. And I've had people ask me on Twitter and so forth, why do we go so deep in some of these legs and so shallow in other legs? And the whole trick on the multi-race wagers, in my opinion, is you're looking for your strongest opinions and you're looking to capitalize on them. So ideally, I like to try to find a single in each sequence. Unfortunately, in this one, I had to narrow it down to 2 in the third leg. I couldn't separate one from the other, and I didn't want to take a chance of losing the ticket based on that. But we're looking to take one strong opinion, and then spread a lot of horses and races around it that, hey, any of these horses can win. And that's what we're doing, is we're looking for a price there. So we're trying to get a price that other players don't have. That way our ticket stays live. And we chop that pool down with a lot fewer people than we did if all the favorites win every race. Because you have guys at the track going out putting $200 straight pick 4s down on, say, 7, 7, 7, 7. And if that comes in, yeah, they're going to get paid on it, but if it's all 4 favorites, they're going to hit. Everybody had those horses. Everybody's splitting that money up. You're not going to get the kind of return that you're going to see a $500,000 pick 5 ticket like we saw on Saturday. Not that these pick 4s are going to come back anywhere near that, but we're looking to eliminate the other players by having horses they might not have in the legs that we go deeper.
Yeah, and another strategy, Sig, that people can do, and I know the syndicates do this, when, there are big carryovers and such, they do go deeper in races, as you said, because there's guaranteed money if it's a, mandatory payout and so forth. But even when you're playing a pick 4, and there's a lot of people that, and we talked about that in a previous show, whether you're doing, if you're hitting one race like, exactas and tries, or you're doing a multi-race wager like the pick 3s and pick 4s and pick 5s, that what they can do is they'll have their bigger ticket that has the bigger coverage, where you're looking for those lottery tickets, so to speak. But if you play a $200 or $300 pick 4, and 3 of the 4 horses that come in are favorites, you're going to lose money if you hit that ticket. plain and simple, okay? But what they'll do is come back and play a couple smaller tickets that have a lot more singles on them where they are covering themselves if it comes in with favorites so that they can get back some of that big money that they played for added, coverage where they're trying to hit the home run. And when you're doing this, you should try to find a couple races where you are throwing a couple bombs on the ticket, because that's what we're here for. We're here to hit bombs. And the best races to do that, in my opinion, are the maiden races. I think those are the most wide open races, and the claiming races, where the claiming horses generally are the same batch of horses that perceivably these are horses of the same caliber, because you can buy any horse in that race for the same price. So people are not going to put a horse that's 3 classes better than that in that race because they don't want to lose them for a low price. So it's a more competitive race in theory. And that's a lot of times where you'll find one of those, big races, because a lot of times what happens is all things are equal. A long shot pops up and you say, how did that happen? And this is something that I see at the racetrack all the time, where people will look at the program and they'll see a horse last week won in a certain time, and then this week gets beat and the race went a second slower. Well, how did he get beat? He went a second faster last week. Well, it's because the pace, the way it went, was the horse under pressure. There's one thing to be on the lead and be on the lead by yourself. There's another thing to be on the lead, and even if the fractions are a little bit slower, but say you're on the lead and there's a horse on the inside of you that's running second, and there's a horse on the outside of you running third, and you've got a half a length lead, you're under pressure pretty much that whole race, because you have those horses right there and you're spending more energy, even though you might be going a little bit of a slower fraction. And people don't understand stuff like that. Or a horse that closed from way back last week in a faster race. Well, he was able to close because they went faster the first half of the mile, and those horses didn't have the same energy left in the tank, gas in the tank coming home, so the horses from behind made up ground. This time they went to the half slower, so those horses on the front end came home stronger. It's like, if you have your car, this is the best way to understand this theory when you're looking at times in a program. If you have your car and you set your car to, and all the newer cars have how many miles per gallon you're getting. Okay, if you're driving your car and you're on a highway and you got it on cruise control when you're going 65 on cruise, so you're not pushing the gas down, flooring it, you're going at an even speed, you look at what your average miles per gallon is. Now, for the next 10 miles while you're driving, keep putting your foot on the gas and bury the gas, and, gunning it. Watch your average miles per gallon. It's going to drop. You're not going to get as much gas out of that tank that way. And it's the same way in horse racing. That's the best analogy I can give. You agree?
Agree completely. One of the things you need to look at is you'll see we'll put the splits up when you're watching a race on TV, on RTN or on TVG. They're going to put the splits up. And as Marcus told us last week, you're looking for a 12-second furlong or a 24-second quarter mile. So when you see them put those up and you say, wow, they're fast on the front end, that usually sets it up perfectly for a horse that's going to close. The horses up front are going at too fast of a rate, run out of energy, and this horse has been trotting along in the back of the pack and says, all of a sudden, hey, it's time to wake up. Boom, takes off right down the course. You see him come flying down. You see this a ton in turf races. They'll just sort of sit along the back end of follow the pace along, and then, okay, now it's time to wake the horse up. Next thing you know, you see this horse come out of nowhere, flying down the stretch, nips them all at the wire, boom, maybe pace balloons. Absolutely.
All right. And any other horse you want to make a mention of in your pick 5 that you extremely proud of?
I would say proud of, but you made a point of pointing out in race 6 you didn't use my one horse, Poseidon. So let's give Poseidon his due. The 4-year-old Gelding's only making his third career start, which is odd. He's a late bloomer here, didn't start racing until the end of his 3-year-old season. He broke his maiden last out at the $32,000 level, and now he's dropping down to a $16,000 level today. So basically, it's taking, say, a guy from Major League Baseball and putting him back in Double-A and saying, okay, have at it, boys, and see what happens. And I think he's got a nice shot in here. I can't leave him off that ticket.
Yeah, it definitely. I looked at him, and he's also, and is this something that you look at as well? He's got a big weight relief in this race. He's only carrying 117 pounds, where the top horses in this race are carrying 124. Not to say anything, but when you carry more weight, you tire out quicker. So a 7-pound weight advantage, that is something that I will give you with Poseidon there in that one. Not making any weight references or anything there.
I resemble that remark.
Oh, I guess you did pick up on that.
Oh, the way this quarantine's going, I'm carrying an extra 7 pounds a week.
You know what? The first week I put on 4 pounds, and I was a little bit worried, but then just the stress of everything. I'm a stress eater. Some people are totally the opposite. When they're stressed and stuff, they don't eat. I'm just the opposite. Now, we've got into the pattern, and got some stuff to fill our day with some horse handicapping and everything. So I'm not eating quite as much. I'm still eating, but we've held that, actually lost back a pound off of it. So we're only up 3 pounds. So if I was a horse racing today, they'd only say +3 on the changes for the race program. Let's get to that story time, because we want to keep this under an hour, Sig, and I'm going to let you have the honors here. But let me tell you, I want to set the stage first for this. It was Kentucky Derby Friday. So it was the Kentucky Oaks racing. And we were at Red Rock, okay? I was there with Sig, and I had to leave Red Rock to drive back over to the studio. I had to do a radio show at 3 o'clock, and I was going to rush soon as I was done with the segment, rush back to Red Rock to see the Kentucky Oaks. Well, they ended up holding me for a second segment. So I was running late. When I got out of the studio, the race was already over. I did not know the results yet. And as I'm driving, I text you. I wasn't driving and texting. Siri did the texting. And I told Siri to text Sig, and all I did is I said, "How'd we do?" Okay. Now, you never call me back. Okay. I send you a text, and I always get a reply. Okay. I did not get a reply, but I got a phone call. And when I answer the phone, you're like all excited. You're out of breath and this and that. I'm thinking we hit balloons in the Kentucky Oaks. Now you can tell the rest of the story.
Guys, as Marco said, number one, I'm on the spot. I'm not a great storyteller. I'll preface it with that. But we were hanging out at Red Rock on Kentucky Oaks Day. It was me and Marco. I think Brian Leonard, Ralph Michaels were all there. Had a nice lunch, thanks to Marco. Marco bought lunch for all of us.
Brad Powers was with us too, I think, that day. Maybe.
Who was it?
One of the time. Brad Powers, was he there that day too?
Yeah, Brad wasn't there. Mark Meltzer was there, East Coast Gambling.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Marky.
So Mark was there, but everybody went their separate ways. I mean, both Ralph and Brian and Mark none of those guys are horse guys. Marco and I are the horse guys. Marco had left to do the radio show. I went back from lunch, went in, watched the Kentucky Oaks, watched Serengeti Empress destroying my pick 4, my pick 5, my exacta, my trifecta, all down and out. Said, screw this, I'm done with the horses for the day. Still had to do work on the Kentucky Derby card for tomorrow, but I was waiting. Marco was my ride that day, so I'm stuck at Red Rock. I stick $20 in a video poker machine, which when I'm not in the race book and so forth, you can usually find me playing a video poker machine. I rarely touch the slots because they're a no-win situation, but I've studied pretty well on the video poker and feel pretty confident in my skills. I'm about 3 spins into the video poker when this little game pops up. You got to use your player's card, guys. Always use a player's card. Get your points, get your comps. This little game pops up on the screen, says, pick 3 of these. I think it was pick 3 of these 20 keys. And it pops up all these keys just by click 3 different numbers. And then, I'm sorry, it was pick 4. It was pick 4 of these keys. And then it comes back and it shows you 6 boxes, and my numbers were there. And it starts opening the boxes out of the 6. First one pops up, it's like you get 2,500 in comp slot points. And second one pops up, you got $10 on free play. Third one pops up, you have like $25 on free play. I'm like, okay, this is cool. 25 free bucks. Fourth one opens up and says, car. And I sit there and I stare at it for a few minutes. I'm like, okay, maybe I just qualified for something. I keep spinning on the machine. About 5 minutes later, these 2 impeccably dressed marketing people come over and go, congratulations. I'm like, Ford? Like, you just won a Cadillac.
Yeah. And
so I sit there in shock for about 5 minutes as they're asking me questions, taking my information and so forth. And that's when Marco Sex comes in and says, how'd we do? So, like you said, I didn't reply to the text. I called him. He's like,
out of
hey,
breath.
I just want a Cadillac. Like, I'm not going to use the word because we're on YouTube. You're S in me.
Yeah.
So, like, no. So by the time he gets there, I'm still in the middle of doing all the paperwork, filling out the tax forms and so forth. But granted, Serengeti Empress won me a Cadillac. Not the way you would think, but it just worked out that way that day.
Absolutely. And congrats on that. And yeah, instead, I thought we hit big on the Kentucky Oaks, and instead you won a Cadillac. Hey, I'm happy for you. Never did get a ride in that caddy with it, but hey, it's good. It was a nice caddy. Sent me several pictures of it once you finally got it, because you had to go to the dealership and everything else. And you actually did. You had an option, right? You could have taken a cash sum, which wasn't the amount of the caddy or the caddy.
Right. They did offer me a $15,000 lump sum cash payment or a vehicle that was more than 2 times the value of that. So I did go with the car option.
Absolutely. Well, that is a good one for story time this time. How Sig sucked in the Kentucky Oaks and come away with a caddy. Good stuff, guys. Hey, tomorrow, be sure to check out Sig's card at Gulfstream Park. I'll be doing a combination of Gulfstream and Oaklawn. I'll be predominantly Oaklawn tomorrow, but I'll have a couple races from Gulfstream as well. Looking over the card, there's a few races there that I do like, so I'll have that card up as well. You can check that out at WagerTalk.com either late tonight or early tomorrow morning. And guys, thanks for tuning into the show this week. We'll be back next week. Don't know what race is going big on the weekend next week, but we'll have the premier race for you. We'll break it down in detail and have that pick 4 for you guys, the free pick 4. And let's get this one home this weekend. We got no excuses. We're on the same horses. Well, maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out. We'll find out if we're the front end of the horse or the back end of the horse tomorrow at Gulfstream races 5 through 8. Hey, guys, it's been fun. Till next week, let's cash some tickets. Thanks for joining me, Sig. Thanks for that cameo appearance at the beginning of the show from our beloved leader, the Prez. Until next week, I'm Marco D'Angelo. Enjoy the races this weekend. This has been the Pony Pundits for WagerTalk.com.